There's a lot going on here.
I cannot believe that. I cannot believe that. I would imagine that this is like easy breezy street for most superintendents right now. I am delighted that I am not in your seat. And I tell you, I retired at a very good time, so 3 years ago. So awesome. Dr. Martin, Dr. Newell is going to be a little late coming in. So with your permission, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I am, because I know your time is valuable, and I am going to be recording this. I will stop recording when we go into our breakout session. So we'll go ahead and get started. Steve, thank you for giving us this opportunity to be on your committee. It has certainly been an honor and a privilege to serve on your committee. I have enjoyed it very much. And I will have to say that you've worked extremely hard. The product that you produce, I think, is very timely and certainly something that we are looking forward to hearing the conclusion of it today. So Steve, go right ahead, and it is all yours.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Stone. I just first want to say thank you to you, Dr. Stone, for being my chair and guiding me through this whole entire process. I also want to thank you, Dr. Martin, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of my committee. And we've known each other for quite some time, and you've always been a huge supporter, and I really appreciate that. Without further ado, I will share here. And all right. Can you see my first slide there, Dr. Stone?
Yes.
All right. Very good. We'll go ahead and get started. Again, good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to present effects of a global schools initiative in a rural school setting. Let me go right here.
And Steve, you may want to let us know if we have a question. How do you want to handle that? Or
Sure. Sorry. Yes, I was moving the pictures around, minimizing that so it didn't block my view. I'm sorry. Yes, as we go through this presentation, if something pops up, feel free to stop me at that time while we have that slide up, and we can discuss it and then move forward. But please feel free to do that if you feel so led.
And Steve, Dr. Newell has joined us.
All right. Good afternoon, Dr. Newell.
Good afternoon. I have one more bus that I'm waiting on, but I'm on my phone. So as soon as that bus comes, I'll hop on my computer, but I'm listening to you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Dr. Newell. All right. We'll start over again here. Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to present effects of a global schools initiative in a rural school setting, a collective case study of how a global schools initiative impacts a small rural elementary school in Northwest North Carolina. I'll give you a moment to preview the agenda for today. As you can see, we begin with an introduction into this study, including the background, purpose, driving questions, scope, and theoretical framework of the study. We will then review some of the relevant research that informed this study. Next, we will move to the methodology and study design, including the research methods with description of data collection and research alignment. We will continue with an examination of the results of the study, noting the findings and themes that emerged. We will conclude with a discussion of the results, implications of findings, and recommendations for future research. This study focused on a rural school in northwestern North Carolina. As the principal of this school, I realized there was a problem with students experiencing culture shock when they left this area to pursue post-secondary education. Students returned from college within a semester. I reflected on why this might be occurring, and more importantly, what might we do to change the trajectory for our students? What I noticed was that our students had experienced very little diversity throughout their K-12 education. Some students had rarely, if ever, traveled out of the county. Many of the school staff had always lived in the area and attended the same school where they now taught. Students were not prepared for this transition because they were lacking two essential skills: understanding of other cultures and service leadership. As educators, particularly in a small rural town, it was imperative that we integrate global education and build cultural competency in each student. This led me to research educational programming options that would support increasing student global competencies. I wanted a global education program that would develop a student's global connectedness and global perspective by introducing them to different cultures, beliefs, and ways of life. An option that would engage students in authentic learning experiences and develop essential skills such as problem solving and critical thinking. Additionally, it would need to be an appropriate fit for our school's culture and enhance current initiatives and programming that were already in place at the school site. The global education program would need to align with and enhance the curriculum and instruction at all grade levels. It would also need to support best practices in the classroom, teacher engagement, and job satisfaction. We would need a program that was supported by our community and encouraged their engagement. Last, the global education program would need to demonstrate a positive impact on student educational outcomes. After exploring many options, the Global Schools Initiative was selected as the best fit for our school implementing global education at our school. For the purpose of this study, a mixed methods research design was adopted to explore the implementation of a Global Schools Initiative and how it might impact student outcomes, teacher job satisfaction, and community relations. This relationship was studied through surveys, interviews, student outcome data, and needs assessments. The driving questions for this research study were as follows. In what ways does a Global Schools Initiative affect the academics and attendance of students in a small elementary school found in Northwest North Carolina? Next, what impact, if any, has this Global Schools Initiative had on teachers' job satisfaction? And what impact, if any, has this Global Schools Initiative had on community relations? Outlined here is the scope of this study, including the methodology, participants of the study, the sample size, duration, setting, the role of the researcher, and the inclusion and exclusion criteria set for the study. Next, we would consider the theoretical framework of this study. Hanvey's conceptual themes encompass a wide range of topics in comprehensive global education. His 5 elements of global education have been cited, endorsed, and continue to be described in the goals of global organizations such as the Asia Society and Partnership for 21st Century Skills. Hanvey's 5 elements will be used for the purpose of this study to define and describe global education. The Global Schools Initiative encompassed several theories and concepts that were evaluated as part of the literature review. As discussed previously, Hanvey's 5 elements of global education were utilized for this study. His conceptual theory of global education was significant to this study as it would serve as the model for global education programming. Essential to a global education is developing global citizenship. Global citizenship can be defined as a sense of belonging to a broader community and common humanity. It emphasizes interdependency and interconnectedness between the local, the national, and the global. This perspective on global citizenship was important to this study. Throughout the Global Schools Initiative, we encourage students, staff, and the community to think local is global and global is local. This was to reinforce the concept that we are all interconnected and that we can develop global citizenship by appreciating the perspectives of others, whether they are across the street or across the world. Global competencies are the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values that a global citizen would embody. Two models were reviewed for this study. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development model included 4 broad categories considered domains of global competence. These were published as part of the PISA Global Competence Framework. The second model studied came from Participate Learning's Profile of a Global Citizen utilizing PISA's framework. Their profile details 12 global competencies. As part of the literature review, relevant research regarding service learning and the Sustainable Development Goals was reviewed as they were included in the implementation of the Global Schools Initiative. The Sustainable Development Goals were adopted by the United Nations in 2015 and include 17 goals that address universal issues such as no poverty, zero hunger, and quality education. Incorporating the Sustainable Development Goals within the Global Schools Initiative was important to this study as it supports all 5 of HANVI's global education elements. Review of relevant research on the incorporation of Sustainable Development Goals into the curriculum noted positive impacts for students, including increased student engagement and critical thinking. With the Global Schools Initiative, a primary way that the Sustainable Development Goals were introduced to students was through service learning. Research on service learning from the U.S. government notes that benefits include improved academic outcomes, promoting a sense of connectedness, and promoting social and emotional skills. I found this research particularly interesting because the benefits of service learning seem to mirror some of the benefits of global education. Lastly, because this study took place within a rural education setting, relevant research regarding the unique factors impacting rural education were examined, such as enrollment challenges, culture shock for students, and geographical isolation. Here you can see a timeline of our implementation of the Global Schools Initiative. This study will focus on the years 2016-2017 through 2018-2019. For this study, a convergent design model was used. During phase 1, quantitative and qualitative data were collected concurrently. Results were merged for analysis and interpretation. We will now look at data collection and research alignment. For research question 1, quantitative data sources included the North Carolina School Report Card with both performance and growth data, as well as the North Carolina School Report Card attendance data. The parent survey was a qualitative data source. I created this survey and sent it to all parents and had 16 responses. For research question 2, 2 qualitative data sources were used. The Global Readiness Needs Pre- and Post-Assessments were completed by all teachers and used to assess current classroom practices of global integration within their classroom. In-depth interview sessions were held with 5 teachers to gain their insight on the impact of the Global Schools Initiative on their job satisfaction. For research question 3, 1 source of qualitative data was used, which was a focus group interview with 5 community members to collect their responses on how the Global Schools Initiative had impacted community relations. Here you see a summary of the North Carolina School Report Card data from 2016-2017 to 2018-2019. In the second column are the academic performance percentage grades reported for that year. The next column indicates whether the school did not meet, met, or exceeded growth for that year. The next section, you'll find the average daily enrollment percentages for my school, the district, and the state for the same school years. I created a parent survey that was sent to all parents. 16 responses were submitted. Overall, parents responded positively as they answered questions regarding the Global Schools Initiative's impact on student engagement, competency development, academic performance, and the global perspective. Data from the North Carolina report cards and parent survey data were compiled and reviewed. Analysis of EOG data from 2016-2017 through 2018-2019 school years shows a positive trend. This pattern was consistent across all grade levels. Analysis of attendance data for the same 3-year span shows a slight decline with a 2% decrease overall. However, this same decrease is not seen at the individual grade levels. This inconsistency in attendance does not establish a clear trend. Significant to this study are parent responses to questions 2 through 6, numbers 9 and 10. All had responses that were 80% or higher, either strongly agree or somewhat agree. Some themes that emerged: impact on the academic performance, positive trends in both academic performance grade and academic growth from 2016-2017 school year to 2018-2019 school year, with a 14% increase overall in academic growth. For the academic growth, you see that the school did not meet growth in 2016-2017, met growth in 2017-2018, and exceeded growth in 2018-2019 school year. As stated earlier, significant to the study are the parent responses to questions 2 through 6, numbers 9 and 10. Responses to these questions indicate that parents feel students are more excited and engaged in their learning. They reported students are experiencing real-world connections and participating in authentic learning experiences and are interested in coming to school. Their responses demonstrate student attainment of curriculum standards in addition to global competency. Parents indicated they perceive their child's increased background knowledge as it relates to global issues as well as skill development. The impact on attendance. Examination of North Carolina report card data did not reveal any clear patterns, positive or negative, in daily attendance average as a result of the implementation of the Global Schools Initiative. This seems to be aligned with the parent responses from the survey. The Global Readiness Needs Pre-Assessment was completed by all 13 teachers prior to initial implementation. The post-assessment was again completed by all 13 teachers during the 2018-2019 school year. The assessment was used to gauge global practices in their classrooms. In-depth interview questions were conducted with teachers at the school. These questions focused on the impact the Global Schools Initiative had on teacher job satisfaction and community relations. Data from the Global Readiness Needs Assessment and responses from the in-depth interviews with teachers were compiled and reviewed. Analyzing the Global Readiness Needs Assessment responses, one question that stood out was, teachers utilize culturally responsive teaching strategies. On the pre-assessment, 66% of the teachers answered yes. On the post-assessment, 90% answered yes to the same question. From the interviews, all of the respondents felt the initial implementation was clearly communicated. 4 out of 5 responded implementing the Global Schools Initiative had enhanced their lessons but had not significantly impacted their routines or their schedules. In other words, they had incorporated this into what was already working within their classroom. 4 out of 5 said that the Global Schools Initiative had made a positive impact on their job satisfaction. One teacher stated, it had helped me fall back in love with teaching. All responded that the Global Schools Initiative had helped their students become better global citizens. Several themes emerged from analysis of teacher interviews, impact of Global Schools Initiative on teacher job satisfaction related to clear, consistent, and ongoing communication regarding implementation, as well as ongoing professional learning and coaching support. Second, the teacher job satisfaction was impacted by the Global Schools Initiative being integrated into existing practices. One teacher responded, "My routines have stayed the same. However, I have been more intentional of bringing global issues into our classroom on a regular basis." Another positive thread throughout their responses was that the Global Schools Initiative had allowed the students to think more critically and then apply what they had learned through their SDG service learning projects. One teacher answered, "When I present them with new information, I can see their brains working. They are asking the important questions. What role does this information play on my impact in the world?" Teachers believed the Global Schools Initiative had given the students a worldview and that they could truly make a difference. As one teacher said, "My students are more aware of the world around them. They no longer believe this is the only location on the map. They are continuously taught and exposed to other countries and their cultures." When asked directly how the Global Schools Initiative had impacted their view of their role, the responses were overwhelmingly positive. As one teacher responded, "What I do on a daily basis in a tiny rural elementary school might look insignificant to some. However, the Global Schools Initiative shows that what I do, teach, and model for my young students will truly have global impacts as they leave my classroom." Focus group questions were included in an interview for community members from the school's attendance zone. These questions were related to the impact of the Global Schools Initiative on the students, the school, and community relations. Responses from the focus group interviews were compiled and reviewed. Here is a summary of those responses. All the community members interviewed had received communication about the Global Schools Initiative through multiple communication platforms. The community members were clear on the vision of the Global Schools Initiative. All the community members interviewed knew about the students' SDG service learning projects. Knowledge of the projects varied from community member to community member, but each community member did know that the students had conducted at least 2 or more projects. All of the community members were very clear on the importance of the skills the students were learning, such as teamwork, problem solving, project management, and developing empathy. Respondents commented on how the entire community had become more involved with the school through working alongside the students with their SDG service learning projects. The community members felt this initiative would prepare the students for the future. One theme that emerged was that communication was vital. Communication through multiple media sources was necessary to reach the community and provide information regarding the Global Schools Initiative. As one community member stated, keeping the school Facebook page up to date with all the global education taking place at the school was an effective way of keeping the community updated on this initiative. Another theme that emerged was that the community members engaged in service learning projects alongside the students. One community member shared that they appreciated the Global Schools Initiative had provided opportunities for families and the community to participate and contribute. A third theme was that community members valued the global competency, social and emotional competency, and workforce skill development that the Global Schools Initiative provided. As one community member stated, the SDG projects taught the students so many life skills like problem solving, project management, organization, and communication. More importantly, I think it taught them to have empathy for others and take action to improve the world around them. Another community member said that students were learning problem-solving skills, critical thinking, reading and writing, art, caring about others, volunteering, and learning other cultures, just to name a few. Lastly, a theme throughout community member responses was that they saw the Global Schools Initiative as a way to prepare students for the future. As one community member said, the benefits of the Global Schools Initiative are tremendous and in many ways will influence the lives of these students and those with whom they come in contact with, their confidence to engage and navigate this ever-growing, ever-changing, ever smaller, wide world we live in. Results for research question 1. Comparison of North Carolina school report card performance and growth data showed an increase in both academic areas of proficiency and growth for the school, indicating a positive impact. Comparison of North Carolina school report card attendance data showed no clear trend, indicating no impact on attendance data. Results for research question 2. Analysis from the Global Readiness Pre-Assessment and Post-Assessment surveys, as well as data collected from in-depth interviews, demonstrates that teachers report positively on a variety of factors impacting job satisfaction, including communication, professional learning, instructional practices, impact on student learning, and global perspective. Results for research question 3. Review of interview data from community members shows that they report positively on the impact of the Global Schools Initiative, including communication with community, opportunities for community involvement, impact on student learning and student development of global competencies, social and emotional competencies, and workforce development skills. Implications of the findings. While this study was conducted in a rural elementary school, there is the potential for broader applications across all educational settings. This study could be used to show the impact of a Global Schools Initiative on student performance, attendance, teacher job satisfaction, and community relations. Successful implementation of a Global Schools Initiative could be replicated and scaled for larger schools and at the district level. This study highlighted significant connections to the integrations of service learning projects and sustainable development goals within the curriculum. Findings of this study could be used to give guidance to other rural school leaders who might be interested in implementing their own Global Schools Initiative. Limitations of the findings. By nature, this study setting is in a small rural school and the overall sample size was small. I believe that even though the sample size was small, the data collected through surveys, interviews, and focus groups would be enlightening as the model was expanded elsewhere. Data sources were limited to EOGs. Some of my questions were limited to, for example, what benefits do you see? This did not allow for things that were not beneficial to be answered. Another limitation of this study was the duration of the Global Schools Initiative. the school had not had adequate time to reach full implementation of the Global Schools Initiative. It is expected that as the Global Schools Initiative grows, new knowledge and skills will be needed, and there will be a natural drop in implementation. A principal change happened in June of 2020. Any change in team members or leadership can impact the sustainability of an initiative. Beginning in March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic impacted the learning environment of students and staff. This also impacted the level of community involvement and methods available for service learning projects. As principal of the school, I had to be very attuned to my own personal bias as I was tightly connected to the students, staff, and the community. Now for a look at the delimitations. The population for the interviews was selected as they were directly impacted by the Global Schools Initiative and would have relevant feedback to provide. An outside interviewer was selected to conduct these interviews so that any personal bias that I may have had would not influence the interview process. Teachers participated in an in-depth interview to provide their unique perspective on how the Global Schools Initiative had impacted their classroom practices, their engagement with families and community, and their students' performance. Parents participated in surveys with a variety of questions covering their views on overall Global Schools Initiative implementation, classroom practices, and their students' academic engagement and performance. Community members participated in focus groups with a primary focus on the Global Schools Initiative impact on relationships with the community. As I reflect on this study, I believe there are several possibilities for ongoing and future research. Could we apply what has been learned from this study to replicate and scale implementation? Could this Global Schools Initiative be successful in a larger school district? Would this Global Schools Initiative be successful in an urban school district? What areas, for example, agriculture and arts, might be best suited for different types of school systems? After seeing this continued improvement in student proficiency and academic growth, I have to wonder, what will this data look like 5 years down the road, maybe 10 years down the road? Another area to look at was global education and what we might need for future research there. I looked at what is the connection between global competency development and social and emotional competency development? What is the connection between global competency development and workforce skill development? What are the benefits of SDG integration into the curriculum? Are the benefits of integrating SDGs and service learning similar? Finally, as the Global Schools Initiative reaches full implementation, what will be the full implications for our students, teachers, and the community? Questions here are, what are the long-term benefits of the Global Schools Initiative? And will the Global Schools Initiative help to mitigate the impact of culture shock experienced by students from this area? Thank you.
All right, committee members, Dr. Bull, thanks for joining us. Committee members, are there any questions or anything you want clarity from Steve before, or any comments?
I think one of the biggest things, and you addressed it in your limitations, but I do think it's really important in your limitations to clarify the low amount of responses that you had.
Yes.
Just when I'm thinking like article writing and publishing purposes and things like that, like they're going to want to know what exactly that number was. So I think the 16 survey responses is really the limitation. I don't think the interviews, because you had 5 good interviews, that's a solid number for interviews.
Yes, ma'am.
But I think just really highlighting that, there were 16 responses.
Okay.
What would that percentage be based on the number that you sent out?
There was 197 students total at the school. So yeah, you're right. It's a low percentage.
Right. So it's like 8%. So I just think it's really important to note that.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Newell.
Mhm.
Steve, I do have a question, based off what, well, part of your presentation, but as I was reading through your chapters 4 and 5, you reference how you did 5 interviews with parents or community members and 5 with teachers. What did you settle on the number 5, or was that how many agreed to be interviewed? I was a little bit unclear on that.
Yes, I settled on that number. There's 13 teachers total, and I decided on 5. And what I did was I sent out the information to all teachers, and the first 5 that responded, that's the ones that I chose for the
Okay.
interviews.
Yeah,
And
that was going to be my next question, is
Okay.
what methodology did you use
Sure.
to select your interview subjects? So,
Yes,
okay,
sir.
thank you.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, committee members, are there any other questions or comments before we go into our breakout session? Dr. Bull, did you have any comments or questions?
No, I don't have a question or comment. I joined the session late and I've not had time to read fully the dissertation at this time, but thank you very much for your presentation. And
Yes, sir.
it was fluid from my vantage point. So thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Bull. All right, Dr. Bull, do you want to go in the breakout session with us, or you have a couple of other things to do maybe?
No, normally I don't go into the breakout session with the committee members because I'm not on the committee. I trust the recommendation of the committee. And so thank you again for the invite, and I would exit at this time. Thanks.
Dr. Bull, on the side, there's some stuff sitting on your desk that I hope you'll be happy with.
Come again?
There's a folder sitting on your desk that I hope you'll be happy with as we try to fill that position.
I've already addressed that. I have it scheduled for 11 and 11:30 tomorrow. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right,
All
we're
right.
going to go into breakout sessions, and so we're back. Thank you very much for your presentation, Steve. And I want to say unanimously, the committee is very comfortable moving forward, passing your dissertation on to Dr. Bull for final comment. But and I'll personally say I thought you did a great job. You got some powerful data in there, and I will let
Thank
the
you.
other committee members share, and then you'll stick around and you and I will have some final comments.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Newell?
I just want to congratulate you. I know that you put a lot of hard work in, and you know, you use the feedback that we provided. I do hope that Dean Bull, you know, favorably receives your dissertation.
Yes.
And we gave Dr. Stone a few things to just add, but I thought you did a really good job. The
Awesome.
presentation was definitely strong. So
Thank you.
for that.
I really appreciate your help. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Likewise, Steve, congratulations. The presentation was very solid, and I mean, we could tell that you really put a lot of time into getting ready
Thank you.
for today. The dissertation is well written.
Thank
We
you.
did provide Dr. Stone with some thoughts and just some minor
Okay.
modifications that he'll discuss with you. But again, congratulations.
Sure.
I'm always happy to serve on these committees and help people. It's always good to be there at the finish line, so to speak. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. You're muted, Dr.
I
Stone.
know. Thank you very much, Dr. Newell, Dr. Martin. Thank you from Gardner-Webb University. It's been a pleasure working with you. And please have a safe week and be careful. Thank you very much.
We'll
Thank
try.
Thank you both. Thank
Y'all
you.
take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Congratulations again, Steve.
Thank you.